today because we always like to do joint launch parties for our authors. It gives people a chance to sort of come across books that they wouldn't normally pick up. It builds a bit more community around our authors and our press, and hopefully you'll meet some funky people. So today we have The Good Life by Glen Harper and Sorcerer's Gold by Aquila, and In a Cottage We Once Knew by Robin Tocker. I will not tell you how many times I've misspelled sorcerers. I don't know if it's a British thing, but I want to put a U in it, so I have that seared into my eyeballs now. Aquila's book is young adult fantasy, and Robin's is, she originally pitched it to me as young adult fantasy, but I read it and didn't realise it was supposed to be for teenagers, so it's enjoyable at many levels. Glen's, who we'll hear from first, is absolutely nothing to do with fantasy, and was actually one of the most interesting pitches we've had so far, in that it's our first political fiction book. And I'm going to do the awful reading off the phone thing. We have so many authors, I have to scroll to find the right bio. Here we go. Okay, so Glen Harper attended university as well as worked at a variety of vocations, including manufacturing, construction, housekeeping, custodial service, supervising, warehousing, and many more. From this experience, extending over 30 years, Glen writes on such things as the skills for the job, the contribution of workers to the company, the poor pay of workers in relation to their skills and contribution, the misplaced power of the managers, and the exclusion of workers from the governance in the company. His articles and book reviews appeared on the website Canadian Dimension, In Our Times, Canadian Labour magazine, and Humanist Perspective magazine. And without further ado, I will introduce Glen Harper. Thank you. Do you want the microphone?
Okay. I'll have to drop it though when it comes time to read these items. So, I'll get playing here. Thanks everybody. As Annabelle said, my name is Glen. I'm a writer from here in Regina. And I would like to thank everybody, as Annabelle has done, for showing up. It does mean a lot to writers to have come out and support our work. So coming up for this book launch, thanks very much. My contribution to this book launch is, as Annabelle said, The Good Life, a story of workers and managers. The essence of the story is that a group of guys at a factory where they produce windows want to unionize the shop. They want to organize their fellow workers into a labor union. And then there's the counter effort by management to try to stop that unionization going forward. The name of the window factory is Dominion Windows. I would like to read for you a passage, and that is to try to give you sort of a feel for what the story is, and hopefully get somebody to buy the book. It's available on Pete's Press website. It's available on Amazon.ca. It's also available here. I've got a few copies I can sell you for $24.99. Okay. The passage that I want to read early on in the book, page 5, chapter 1, and it's meant for the reader, and this is Annabelle and the other editor, Lady Pert, did a really good job. This is Glen, you need to do something about that first chapter to try to make it set up the story better, and so I did a rewrite of certain parts, and it basically what's happening is two of the main characters, one is named John and the other one is Jerry. They returned from afternoon break and they started at work at their workstation along with a third crew member. Their workstation is called the Super Saw. Just picture a large industrial saw in a factory. And they start up work and two people come over to see them from management. One is a guy named Daryl, and he's the vice president of the company. And then another guy his name's Richard, and he is the supervisor in the saw department. And they come and confront these guys over their performance on the job. Okay? I take this off. Guys, said Daryl the VP, Richard and I want to talk with you again about the quota for cuts on the super saw. John glanced at the wooden table set up a few feet away from the saw. With a black magic marker, some previous crew member wrote on the table, "Gotta get the cuts." Continuing, Daryl said, "You're still coming up short on the quota by at least 80. Why is that? Everybody else around the plant are getting their quota. Why not you guys? The quota is 680 cuts per shift." You know, Jerry spoke up, we work hard here, and the next day we come into work and get shit on by you guys. God bless him, John thought. Jerry was a young guy, only about 20 years old. He joined the super saw crew around 3 months ago. Jerry had a lot of guts. John never saw anybody talk back to management that way. Usually you got suspended or fired if you did something like that. What did that kid just say? Daryl thought to himself. He was the company vice president. That kid shouldn't be talking to him in that language. As if Daryl didn't already have enough problems. 2 months ago, his wife asked for a divorce. She wanted custody of the children. Already they were sleeping in separate rooms, and she wanted the house. Daryl had to get a lawyer, and he missed some time on the job because of the whole matter. Mr. Brankowski, the owner of Dominion Windows, might be his uncle, but he still wasn't happy with the whole situation. "You're the VP, Mr. Brankowski said to him. "You need to be on the job, especially as we were moving into peak season for production." Now Daryl had to deal with that kid Jerry, the little shit. "Hold on," responded the VP. "Nobody's crapping on anybody. I just want to know what it's going to take to make you guys get the quota." John and the other crew members stood there silently. John knew that they needed a fourth person on the crew. With only 3 on the crew, they were able to get the old quota on most days, 600 cuts. A fourth person would be necessary if they were to reach 680 cuts. He was hesitant to say this to Daryl, the vice president of the company. "We're doing our best," John said, restraining his frustration. "I don't think you are doing your best," responded the VP. "You've had a couple of weeks now to come up with 680 cut quota. We already told you about the results on the super saw a few weeks ago. We know what can be done." John recalled the meeting the VP was talking about. Richard, the supervisor in the saw department, told the super saw crew that management put together a special team on the super saw in the evening, and that they got 680 cuts. John had trouble believing it. "All you have to do," said Richard, "is get 80 more cuts per shift." Richard knew it was difficult to get 680 cuts per shift. 600 cuts was a reasonable number of cuts per shift, and he knew that John was a good worker. Jerry wasn't bad either, even if he did talk back to the supervisors. Dominion Windows was not going to be able to find somebody better than John, he thought. If management decided to fire John or to move him over to another workstation. But Richard wasn't going to speak up in defense of the super saw crew. What would he get out of that? He had his own job in the future to think about. For 3 years, he had been working as a supervisor in the saw department at Dominion Windows. The pay wasn't bad, but it wasn't very good either, especially as he had to work after hours sometimes. At 27 years old, he wanted to move forward in life soon. "Why don't you train us?" suggested Jerry, knowing it would never happen. "If you're not up to the job," responded Daryl, the VP, "we can replace you." "I'm not going anywhere," declared Jerry. Then Richard interjected into the discussion. "On one day, you guys got 632 cuts. So we know that you can do better every day." "That wasn't a normal day," responded John. "On that day," which John recalled for Daryl and Richard, "things went smoothly. Normally there's problems during the shift and other stuff that you guys don't think about that we have to do. The difference between 600 and 680 cuts on the super saw is a lot. Some days we don't even get 600. "I've seen that," said the VP. that should be happening. We need another guy, said Jerry to the VP. Immediately, John thought back to when he started the job around 8 months ago. Temporarily, it turned out, there were 4 men on the super stock group. During that brief period, there was 1 man to load up the vinyl lights, 1 operated the computer and pulled out the cut pieces, 1 punched the pieces, and 1 labeled and put away the punched pieces in the carton. It all worked so well. You're not getting another guy, spoke Darrow, the VP. The super saw is designed for 3 personnel, no more. Maybe Jerry was right, thought John. Maybe the staff had to bring a union into the shop. A couple of weeks ago, Jerry approached him about signing a union card. Jerry had been ready for John to sign. He said they were getting closer to the number of cards necessary to force a vote on Dominion Windows. John hesitated at the time. What if management found out? He considered. He might be fired. It was during break, and immediately John looked around the lot to see if any of the managers were in the area. John said to Jerry, not right now. But he accepted a union brochure from Jerry. Warehouse Workers International was the union. That night, he looked through it, and it all sounded good. The brochure talked about improving the workers' pay and benefits and working conditions. He especially liked the part about the workers being treated with dignity and respect. Now, I'm not arguing with you any longer, said the VP. I'll be back in a few days if I don't see any improvement. John watched as the VP and the supervisor walked away. So this was going to happen again, John thought. Another meeting with Darrow and Rich over the quota. What was John supposed to do? Quit? Sure, it would feel good to walk away from it all, but he couldn't do that with a family to support. Then there was the problem of finding another job. Right now, jobs are hard to come by in Moncton, and the new job could be even worse than it was here at Dominion Windows. He remembered the 2 jobs he had before starting work at Dominion Windows. At first, he worked at a food processing plant. On the first day, management demanded that he work 15 hours, and all he got to do was stand at a production line all shift and package processed food for $8.65 an hour. His next job was at some small plant that manufactured cheap wooden homeware, like wine racks, chairs, shelving units. The place was completely disorganized. Plus, they had supervisors everywhere who seemed to do little more than just watch the employees at work. And some of the equipment was hazardous. The only thing to do, it seemed, was to fight to make this job at Dominion Windows better.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions at all? I mean, you haven't read the book yet, I understand, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
And I will be happy to stall for a few minutes until Robin gets here. So, any questions for Glen? Yes.
I came in late, so what was, is it a true story or your book that you've written?
It's essentially a true story. It's set at a factory that I have worked at.
Okay.
It's set at a factory that I worked at, and I brought in other work experience that I've had in different places in life. So it's true in the sense that the characters are all people that I've encountered before.
Okay.
The story is all effectively true.